The Ukrainian forces started eliminating the isolated pockets of Russian soldiers near Dobropillia one by one, liberating numerous villages in the process. The Russian High Command suddenly understood the real situation on the ground and launched desperate waves of mechanized attacks to reach and save the encircled troops. Euromaidan Press media outlet reports the Ukrainian Armed Forces have launched a major counteroffensive near Dobropillia, collapsing some of the Russian pockets and liberating several key settlements. The breakthrough began with the liberation of Kucheriv Yar, a village that had been under partial Russian control for weeks. Moreover, the Ukrainians have avoided rushing in to prevent triggering the Russian High Command's attention. This approach meant Russian generals continued receiving falsified reports indicating stability, while Russian forces were gradually attrited to prepare for the final clearing operation. Local commanders, desperate to save their careers, sent several reinforcement attempts that only resulted in more massive losses. These localized decisions further weakened Russian cohesion and ensured Ukraine could dismantle the encircled formations methodically, one pocket at a time. When Ukrainian forces finally began clearing the remaining pockets, the veil lifted for Russia's high command. Euromaidan Press claims what they believed to be secure positions rapidly vanished from the map, one after the other. Shocked by reports of simultaneous collapses, Russian commanders ordered emergency mechanized counterattacks to reconnect with encircled troops. For 3 days, they launched assault after assault near Kharkiv, turning the area into a graveyard of armor. Despite trying to use the poor weather to their advantage, wave after wave of Russian armored vehicles failed to achieve anything, as the Ukrainians had mined the area and drones were in the air to finish off any surviving vehicles. Ukrainian drones captured many Russian bodies in the aftermath. They tried to break through a narrow passage in the engineering barriers, but remained there forever. In the panic, some of them crawled into an anti-tank ditch, trying to reach a better position with some sort of protection, but they fell into a death trap with an elusive sense of cover. Euromaidan Press says, due to the lack of protection from above, the anti-tank ditch made them an easy target for the Ukrainian drones. Additional footage shows Ukrainian snipers now positioning themselves in recently liberated tree lines, setting up to rain down heavy fire on any Russian soldier moving into their field of vision. Overall, the Russian tactic to conceal battlefield realities from the high command has backfired spectacularly. Given the scale of cooperation among multiple Ukrainian formations defending Pokrovsk, total Russian losses are several times higher, as precise counts are impossible to make at the current time. Russian soldiers themselves show endless fields and roads littered with their fallen comrades, a devastating testament to the collapse of Russia's all-round defense near Dobropillia. Wartime Russia has seen an unprecedented wave of political arrests. It has included the rooting of the political clan of the once powerful former defense minister Sergei Shoigu, the detentions of dozens of regional officials up to and including deputy governors, the suicide of a federal minister who was facing jail, and arrests of high-ranking judges, according to the Moscow Times. This wave has been accompanied by a massive program of asset confiscations, which has sent a chill through those with high-level contacts who once believed they were protected. In other words, the system is being reforged amid the fires of war, and the arrests and confiscations show no sign of dying down. On the contrary, while President Vladimir Putin is preoccupied with the battlefield, the regime requires resources to continue prosecuting the war. and token displays of justice. It's customary in some quarters to attribute the rise in the number of such arrests to the personal ambition of individual security officers. To some extent, this is true. After all, it's the job of a security official to put people behind bars, and their success is judged according to the number of arrests and the volume of assets seized, Moscow Times says. For a long time, the major constraint on the security agencies was the memory of Soviet-era repression among the elite and a belief that giving the security forces too much power could make the system dangerously imbalanced. Even in the last years of pre-war Putinism, close allies of the Russian leader well understood that empowering the security forces was something that could rebound on them. As a result, for many years, Russia's security agencies tracked huge numbers of people and compiled fat dossiers but made arrests very selectively. The arrests that did take place tended to arise from major federal or regional conflicts or as part of treason cases, but their relative rarity meant most officials felt safe. In a crisis, the existence of so-called telephone justice meant that those who found themselves targeted could count on the intervention of their bosses, political patrons, or business partners, Moscow Times claims. Now, however, the absence of political guardrails has become the norm. And on top of their new vulnerability, Russia's bureaucrats also have to deal with the fallout from the war. While there has been no letup in corruption, conflicts remain, and the state is desperate to mobilize its resources in order to survive this period of geopolitical tensions. Unsurprisingly, this has all been accompanied by a mass nationalization of private assets. The process is generally driven by security officers trying to impress their bosses. An enormous number of assets are at risk. In particular, prosecutors are drawn to assets owned by those living abroad, or those critical of the regime or the war in Ukraine. Even relatively senior regional officials have found themselves targeted via asset confiscations, such as the former deputy governor of the Sverdlovsk region, Oleg Chemezov. Often, such seizures are legalized through allegations of corruption, and no one in Moscow will risk incriminating themselves by standing up for a regional bureaucrat entangled in corruption allegations. It's also worth highlighting cases in which officials have been arrested because of their ostentatiousness. Everything from showing off a luxurious lifestyle to refusing to share or otherwise ignoring wartime realities can elicit an aggressive response from the security services. Putin's recent decision to make Prosecutor General Igor Krasnov the Chief Justice of Russia's Supreme Court did not signal any change. Even if the Prosecutor General's office may not now be as proactive as it was under Krasnov, the power to open a criminal case is one also held by both the Investigative Committee and the Federal Security Service, and there will be no let-up in their efforts.